Hey, welcome back. If this is your first time, just to reiterate, my lady and I are studying the book of Mark together. We are on chapter 8 today. We will be going one day at a time, just reading one chapter, less than 15 minutes. We'll be done with the entire book of Mark in about 8 days. There's 16 chapters, so just moving forward to that information. If you'd like to keep coming back and join the community and join what we're doing and study with us, then come back tomorrow, catch up on what you missed out on. But without further ado, this is the Gospel of Mark chapter 8, feeding the 4,000. In those days, the multitude being very great and having nothing to eat, Jesus called his disciples to him and said to them, I have compassion on the multitude, because they have now continued with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. And if I send them away hungry to their own houses, they will faint on their way. For some of them have come from very far. Then his disciples answered him, How can one satisfy these people with bread here in the wilderness? He asked them, How many loaves do you have? And they said, 7. So he commanded the multitude to sit down on the ground, and he took 7 loaves and gave thanks, broke them, and gave them to his disciples to set before them. And they set to them before the multitude. They also had a few fish, and having blessed them, he said to set them before them. So they ate and were filled, and they took up 7 large baskets of leftover fragments. Now those who had eaten were about 4,000, and he sent them away. He immediately got into the boat with his disciples, and came to the region of Dalmanutha, I think. That was Mark 8 verse 10. Yesterday, so just to give you I don't quite remember. He's in the region of Decapolis to the Sea of Galilee. After departing from Sidon, he came through the midst of the region of Decapolis to the Sea of Galilee. Where does this say? So I think he's by the Sea of Galilee right now, and he's just traveling across the region. It says he was last in the region of Decapolis. But anyways, I like to keep track of kind of his, on the foot journey and paint a picture of where he is and what he did throughout his actual travels and where he was traveling. So, Mark 8, verse 11, the Pharisees seek a sign. Then the Pharisees came out and began to dispute with Jesus, seeking from him a sign from heaven, testing him. But he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, Why does this generation seek a sign? Assuredly I say to you, no sign shall be given to this generation. Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Herod. And he left them, and getting into the boat again, he departed to the other side of Galilee, the Sea of Galilee. Now the disciples had forgotten to take bread, and they did not have more than 1 loaf with them in the boat. Then Jesus charged them, saying, Take heed, beware the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod. So Mark 8 verse 15. In the footnotes, leaven means yeast, the yeast of the Pharisees and the yeast of Herod. Interesting. Mark 8:16, and they reasoned among themselves, saying, It is because we have no bread. And Jesus, being aware of it, said, Why do you reason because you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive nor understand? Is your heart still hardened? Having eyes, do you not see? And having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember? When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many baskets full of fragments did you take up? They said to Jesus, 12. Also, when I broke the 7 for the 4,000, how many large baskets of fragments did you take up? And they said, 7. So Jesus said to them, How is it you do not understand? Whoa, it's a great question, because I don't understand it either. So it says they had 12 baskets. There were 12 disciples. What is the 7 for? I guess we might find out. Mark 8, verse 22. Blind man healed in Bethsaida. Then he came to Bethsaida, and they brought a blind man to him, and they begged him to touch him. So he took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes and put his hands on him, he asked him if he saw anything. And he looked up and said, I see men like trees walking. Then he put his hand on his eyes again and made him look up. And he was restored and saw everyone clearly. Then he sent him away to clean his house, saying, neither go into town nor tell anyone. Mark 8, verse 27. Peter confesses Jesus as the Christ. Now Jesus and his disciples went out to the towns of Caesarea Philippi. And on the road he asked his disciples, saying to them, who do men say I am? So they answered, John the Baptist, but some say Elijah, and others say one of the prophets. And he said to them, but who do you say I am? Peter answered and said to him, you are the Christ. Then he strictly warned them that they should tell no one about him. Mark 8, verse 31, Jesus predicts his death and resurrection. And he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He spoke his word openly, and Peter took him to the side and began to rebuke him. But when Jesus had turned around and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter, saying, get behind me, Satan, for you are not mindful of the things of God, but the things of men. And this is very interesting because this verse right here, Mark 8, verse 32 and 33, Jesus was not incorrect. And obviously he's not incorrect, he's God. But in saying this, the spirit of Satan can work through people, can work through us, our flesh, our natural reaction is to preserve the life. Like, oh, this is, my best friend, I'm going to preserve his life. But obviously we know his life was given as ransom for many. But when Jesus says, get behind me, Satan, it perfectly highlights that the spirit of Satan can work through people to disrupt God's will. So if you are a child of God and you are living out God's will, be mindful, because the enemy parades around like a roaring lion looking for something to devour. Be mindful and use your discernment and try and see the spirit of Satan working against you through the people around you, because it is very real and is very important to understand. Mark 8, verse 34, take up the cross and follow him. When he had called the people to himself with his disciples also, he said to them, whoever desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's will save it. For what will a man profit if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For whosoever is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him the Son of Man will also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. You think in Mark 8, verse 34, let him deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. I struggle with this on a daily basis, as do most of us. Some days I want to sit down and play video games for 10 hours. That would be the exact opposite of what Jesus is saying. Instead of playing video games for 10 hours, I could deny myself and what I want, follow Jesus and dive into the Word and go and preach the gospel. That's me clinging on to my life, trying to save it. But in reality, I need to learn how to let that go, lose that part of my life, and step fully into the gospel and Jesus' work, and I will be given a completely new life. And I feel that's what I'm trying to do now. So just to give a, you know, perspective, I suppose, that is one way to look at it. And one day I will eventually give up my entire life, and I will devote myself to preaching on the streets and preaching in churches and everywhere that I can. I'm already trying, taking baby steps, you know, speaking out in public. I have 2 videos up. Actually 3 videos. My first 3 times speaking in public, and I think they went pretty well. So we'll just see how it goes. But thanks for joining. Like I said, you know, my lady and I have been studying this book together, and this gospel together, and we'll be back tomorrow with Mark 9, and we're just going to keep going until we finish it, and then on to the next one. So if you'd like to continue studying with us and joining our little community, please come back. Until then, we'll see ya. Oh yeah, I'm getting old, my knees hurt.